Good morning. Um, I've been talking about hearing God and the possibility that you hear His words, but you don't really hear what He is saying. Something just doesn't register. Uh, if you're married, I think you know that this is entirely possible. What you hear is filtered by a screen that you're unaware of. For example, if you were criticized by your mom or dad early on, you're going to take innocent things that your spouse says, or even a look, and you're going to react to something that they never said or felt. Do you know what I mean? That's why Jesus not only said, be careful what you hear, but also how you hear. It seems that He's making you and me responsible for our own lives, even if it was messed up by others. Ouch. That's not fair. Abraham's life was messed up by others. It was messed up by his culture. Was the New York City of its time. Is very transactional. You do this for me, and I will do that for you. But God does not work that way. Yes, our relationship with Him is transactional, but it's based on the transaction between the Father and the Son, and not between you and Him or the church and Him. He tried that in the Old Testament, and it just didn't work. God said to Israel, let's make a deal. You do this, and I'll do that. You be good, and I will bless. You be bad, and I'll get mad. But I'm going to set up a way that you can get on my good side again. Israel didn't realize that they were being set up. They didn't have the ability in themselves to keep up their side of the bargain. And they should have negotiated for better terms, but they didn't. And so they entered into this tit-for-tat relationship with God. And that colored how they perceived God and how they heard Him, except for David. David prioritized and cultivated the presence of the Lord in a time when you had to keep your distance. He was the holy God, and He is the holy God, but He was the holy God who dwelt between two cherubim. You had access to God, but sort of, only at certain times and under certain conditions, but not David. David was the one God found when God was seeking someone for Himself who was after God's essence, after His heart. And the Bible says that David sought God, and he sought God's own heart. And so his desire for God's presence overpowered propriety. Whether breaking the rules by taking food which belonged only to priests, whether dancing foolishly before the masses with hardly anything on, or removing the ark of God's presence from the Holy of Holies and bringing it home with him, yes, he did that. David did not accept Old Covenant prescriptions. While others thought God mouthed no, David heard one big yes. What barriers? The veils which kept everyone else away were entry points for David. Nothing was going to keep David from the intimacy he desired, even if he needed to live in the New Covenant, in the New Testament, while everyone else was living in the Old. Regardless of the rules and regulations, David saw the heart of God because he walked by faith and not by sight, and he worshiped. Oh, how he worshiped. Beloved, you and I live in the New Covenant, but often our perception of God is still Old Covenant tit for tat. Because of that, our approach to God and to life is affected. If you knew how much God is so over the top with you and has already said yes to you, how would you be living today? Nancy and I, in many ways, are still living in a holding pattern. But by God's grace, we've chosen to live today as if God's answer is coming tomorrow, and we're praising God. You and I live in the eternal yes of God. Over your lifetime, you've heard many don'ts, many can'ts, and have developed many won'ts. That's why Jesus says, be careful how you hear. Are you aware of how you hear? Can you stand back and listen to your internal dialogue? That's the starting point. You need to hear, you need to listen to what's going on inside and then say, oh God, help me be like David. One thing David did was preach to himself. This is a lost art. He instructed his own soul. He took hold of his own soul. He said, bless the Lord, O my soul. Bless the Lord, O my soul, and don't forget His benefits. You are the best preacher you will ever hear. In fact, you're the only preacher you'll listen to and follow. That's why we sometimes tend to live on a plane so much lower than what God desires. So I'd encourage you to take some time to categorize your thoughts. Create a column on a piece of paper with these lines: God's perception of me, my perception of me, my circumstances, and my future. And then take time to think, to ask yourself, what do I think God really thinks about me? Not a Bible answer, but not what you think God, what the Bible says, but what do you think about what God really thinks about you? And then do the same thing for yourself. What do you really think about yourself? Then ask about your circumstances. Are they working for you or against you? And what does your future look like? A little hint: I don't knows are honest answers and reveal that you're not yet living in a new covenant mentality. This process might be difficult and possibly a little painful, but honesty is the starting point for God's invasion into your inner life and the entry point for the Spirit to take you from the old covenant thinking where you might be into new covenant living. So until next time.